Okay, let's turn our focus now to the rapidly evolving world of financial services. It really is a sector that's being redefined by innovation, regulation, and rising consumer expectations. This next session, Evolving in Finance, Exploring Tomorrow's Financial Services Landscape, really examine the forces that are transforming the financial sector, from embedded finance all the way through to AI-driven banking, to the regulatory shifts guiding that responsible innovation, particularly here in Abu Dhabi. We're going to hear how institutions are adapting, what the future holds for digital banking, and how the region is positioning itself as a global leader in next-generation finance. In the next few minutes, I'm going to ask you to welcome to the stage our speakers. We have Marianne Scicluna, who is Senior Executive Director at the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of ADGM. She's going to be bringing that all-important regulatory lens to this conversation. We also have Jayesh Patel, who is the CEO of WEO Bank. They are, of course, that pioneer in digital-first banking here in the UAE. We have Sunidhi Pasan, who is the founder and group CEO of Finstreet. Now, they're a fintech, or she is a fintech visionary, driving financial inclusion and innovation. And to moderate this forward-looking panel, we are delighted to have join us on the stage Bianca Leodari, who is a partner in financial services for Bain and Company. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Bianca Leodari, Vice President with the Financial Services Practice at Bain and Company. I've personally been working on change and innovation projects with our financial services clients for over 20 years. And over the last decades, as a company, we've supported financial services institutions through a number of waves of change that include financial crisis, deregulation, re-regulation, M&A, digitalization. And lately, if I have to reflect on what are some of the change and innovation topics that are keeping us busy, there's a couple of things that we work a lot on. One is Gen AI and AI, not whether to adopt it, but how to adopt it at scale and in a way that drives return on investment. And the second topic is how to find growth through innovative business models, such as, for example, spin-offs, carve-outs, monetization of assets that banks have in the back office or in the front office capabilities, ecosystem plays, so embedding financial services in the ecosystem of the customer. So a lot of exciting change and innovation initiatives like that. What strikes me and strikes us as a firm about the time we are living in right now in financial services is the breadth of the change, because if you think about something like Gen AI, this really touches on the whole value chain of financial services, back to front. The speed of it is really fast, as you all know. And the third thing is that these are not changes that are just transient or temporary trends. These are changes that are there to stay. So we're actually living through a time of structural change of the financial services industry, which is really exciting. And therefore, also the regulation will have to structurally change to go with it. And the speed of response and adaptation of financial services companies to this change is what will decide who will be the winners and the losers in the next years. So very exciting, let's say, context, but now let's hear from our panelists. All of you in the respective organization, you're really at the forefront of change. So maybe let me ask a few questions, and I will start with Jayesh. So at the head of a digital-first bank that is pretty much built from scratch, what is one way that you're really rethinking, reinventing the way banks operate? And what has been most successful in your journey so far?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. You know, we live in a time where change is changing faster than it's ever been. Yep. The second big thing that's happening is consumers are a lot smarter than they were yesterday. They get information from plenty of sources. They want to be more empowered. So if you look at the world of banking, I think there's two big shifts. One is consumer expectations. And what we've done at WEO is we've built an SME app and a retail app where we're saying we're not just going to give you an account. We want to be the operating system of your money. So everything money in one place. On the business side, we provide a platform so that you can run your business. You started a business because you're passionate about something, not about banking necessarily. This platform gives you these capabilities. And in retail, we help you manage your money so you grow and you're wealthier and you achieve more of your goals. So I think there is this shift from delivering products to delivering experiences and platforms and capabilities that help our customers. The second one, I think, is a more structural change. Banks traditionally like to build everything, have large capex structures. What that does is it makes it very hard for them to compete with tech-centric companies. If you look at us, we partner with a lot of folks in the ecosystem because we believe there are some things we are very good at. If we are a product factory, we'll build the products. We're happy to distribute through any other digital platform. If we are a great distribution platform, we'll consume from others and we'll distribute products. We don't have to do everything. So I think there is this shift of more deciding where you want to play and not playing everything where. I think the second one is organizationally, having this more OpEx-centric model so that you can change where you invest faster. That drives more agility in organizations, which I think makes you build better products for your consumers.
Thank you very much, Jayesh. Sunidhi, maybe next. As a financial services market infrastructure provider, what are the key innovation initiatives that you're working on?
Thank you, Bianca, for having me, and thank you, Economy Middle East. I want to start with that, there are literally systemic problems in the way that capital markets work today. Public markets, as we know, are jurisdiction bound, and private markets are locked up, which means that there is illiquidity, there is lower cash returns that come out as opposed to the paper returns that are promised. And so within this gap, with global capital and global assets that want to exchange hands, how do you do that? And does current infrastructure keep up with that? Public market, clearly no. Private market, there is no infrastructure that exists. So let's start with the opportunity at hand. You already have $15 trillion of assets under management in private markets. Now, within private markets, if we look at private credit, which today sits at $2 trillion AUM, is soon to compound to $30 trillion AUM. On the other hand, if you look at private equity companies, 75% of all companies that have $250 million and above revenue are actually private. So, with all of this in the background in terms of the opportunity and then the inefficiency that currently exists in the market, in private markets, where you have a manual syndication, which is, one GP to another, one GP to another client, or family offices or pension funds, etc. You have GPs running after the same LP money. You have LPs who are seeking liquidity. So in the middle of this huge market of scale for assets and for liquidity, we've created Finstreet, which is the first of its kind financial market infrastructure that allows for global securities from across the world to be listed, traded, settled with lifecycle asset servicing, all on one infrastructure, and it allows for global issuers, global investors to participate in one infrastructure. And of course, we have the great regulation. We have the leadership of the UAE that is promoting the capital to actually flow and not just flow outward from Middle East to any other country, but for capital to also be attracted in a virtuous capital flywheel. And finally, the impact that I believe that Finstreet can create is that assets globally should be able to be marked idiosyncratically and not just because they belong to a country, which can be either the West or the East, as well as the fact that there is $4 trillion of annual deficit in global South economies. And that's where Finstreet can provide legal neutrality and liquidity to those assets is completely game-changing.
Thank you very much, Sunidhi. Let me go to Marianne. From an ADGM perspective, what are the developments that the regulator is seeing in the industry which are directly related to AI and latest technological enhancements?
So financial services, as was mentioned in the introduction, has been inextricably linked to AI and technological developments. And it's been an evolution, and we're seeing transformation across all the sectors and across all types of firms. And we're seeing this transformation and evolution happening in two main ways. Traditional firms adapting their business models and integrating AI and technology in their existing processes, but also we're seeing the emergence of innovative business models that are leveraging AI and technology. And just to name a few examples of what we're seeing in this space, one of the biggest sectors that we have in ADGM is the fund and management assets sector. And we're seeing, for example, the emergence on the retail side of robo-advisors with platforms based in technology, with automated investment strategies based on user profiles and goals. We're seeing the fund space is institutional in nature in ADGM, and we're seeing increased interest in the hedge fund space, which brings with it more algorithmic trading. Definitely, I cannot not mention blockchain and the DeFi space. We're seeing the adoption of or increased interest as well in terms of transactions based on smart contracts. We're seeing as well peer-to-peer business models being developed, especially in the trading area, as mentioned by Sunidhi, but also in other spaces, as well as in the lending space, with private financing platforms, for example, being developed. And we're also seeing different products being offered, especially in the crypto space, with the the emergence of stable coins, and more interest even from the consumers in those type of products. And also the adoption of technology and AI in internal processes by firms, especially in the space of money laundering, relation to money laundering prevention in relation to customer identification, transaction monitoring, with face recognition, surveillance monitoring of transactions. So it's quite wide-ranging and encompassing. And for us, it's very important as a FSRA to keep up to speed with all these developments, to make sure that we can continue to deliver on our regulatory objectives of maintaining the financial soundness of firms, the protection of consumers of financial services, but also the integrity and the reputation of ADGM as a jurisdiction. So that's the maintenance and close engagement and monitoring of these market developments is a crucial part of our approach, which we maintain through various collaborations, both at industry level. For example, we engage a lot with Hub 71. That gives us insights of industry initiatives, and we also take part in Hub 71 plus digital assets review on an annual basis. We collaborate a lot with other regulators as well to share knowledge and experiences. We collaborate with our firms. We have the Reg Lab and the Digital Lab, which offers them opportunities to develop new business models and allows us to continue to develop our framework on lessons learned in that space.
Thank you very much, Marianne. The second question I would like to ask our panel is, we all know that innovation change is not easy, especially if one wants to do it at scale and on a continuative basis. So maybe let me ask Jayesh, in your experience, how do you keep on going with growth and innovation? What are the kind of internal cultural aspects in your organization, but also maybe the external partnership and ecosystem enablers that allow you to continue your journey?
Yeah, look, if anyone figures it out, please let me know. It's not easy. I think we have a few ingredients. It's like building a football team. Yeah, you're always trying to figure out what is the team that gets you to win the championship. I think there are a few elements that stand out. Yeah, the first one is the organization structure. You have a traditional organization structure which is hierarchical, and the decisions come from the top. I think if you look at us, we have a set of principles. These principles are the principles by which we deliver products and services to our customers. Anybody at any level can say this isn't right for our customer because it doesn't follow the principle. So I think you need to relook at shifting the power in the organization to making sure it's based on principles rather than levels in your organization. I think that's one. The second big thing is, I think you need to look at the talent pool that sits and what roles they play. If you look at traditional financial organizations, you have the folks, and I have a regulator beside me. So you have the folks who are supposed to say no, yeah? But you also want to bring the folks who are supposed to push for a yes to the same table, yeah? So at WEO, we have product owners, yeah? We have chief design experience officers, and these folks just fight for consumers. So I think you need to do that. The third thing is, I think you need to be very clear where you want to be amazing at, where you want to be good at, where you're okay to be okay at. I think the notion that you'll be amazing everywhere, not gonna happen, yeah? And I think once you have that mapped out, I think you have some hope to keep on changing at the pace at which the industry is changing. Yeah.
Very good, very insightful. Thank you, Jayesh. Sunidhi, maybe what are some of the challenges you are facing in your field about growth, continuous innovation? What are the barriers and what are you doing about them?
Look, we've started with a very ambitious plan, which is that we want to connect global assets to global capital. So of course there will be challenges. But you know, I was in US last week and I was speaking to the policymakers, and interestingly what they are saying in the US now is that they want to do financial deregulation. And you know, they want to do privatization of the US economy, reprivatization of the economy. And then on the other hand, when you look at Europe, they are legislating them faster than the world is fracturing with all the tariffs or, you know, other contexts that are applied to the world today. So, of course, the fact that we are part of ADGM, which is an international law and allows for issuer passporting, investor passporting, helps us. But the problem is, what is international acceptable law now, given that everybody is trying to go in their own directions? But you know, fundamentals, as Jayesh mentioned, they never change. And the fundamentals that we build our credibility on, which is when we are asking sovereigns, pension funds, large asset managers, investors to trust their capital, to trust their assets with us, there has to be the credibility. And where does that come from? Is from the robust governance and the good rule of law that we are following under ADGM. So just to give you examples, we have segregation of client money with the largest Bank of UAE, FAB. So that's one partnership. But equally, we also have segregation of client assets. So, you know, it's a nominee structure so that the clients are always comfortable with the way that we handle their assets and the way that we handle their capital. But another trend that I have seen is that now some of the funds, they're trying to set up their own internal market for exit. So, when I mentioned that just already there is 1 trillion of private assets that need exit. So, funds are trying to either come up with innovative structure, which is, an evergreen fund or continuous vehicle, or even set up something like a private financing platform, which becomes a bit, prejudiced because they're only catering to their own assets and own clients. So what we have built is completely neutral. And I think education around that is, one of the challenge, because when people think of listing private assets, they think of it as onerous as public market, with the disclosures, with the other regulatory compliance costs. But the way that we've set up our exchange, our securities trading venue is not that onerous. It's only to access the globally dispersed capital. So that's kind of the challenges we're facing as well as mitigating.
Very interesting. Thanks a lot, Sunidhi. Marianne, from a regulatory perspective, I'd like to know specifically, if we think about Gen AI impact, RegTech, how is that impacting your own operations? What are some of the initiatives you're doing there, and what are some of the challenges you're facing?
We're looking at, obviously, we are a regulator as an institution. So we have two facets to this. How our firms are developing in the use of AI and technology, and how that will impact our supervisory approach and authorization approach, and then also our internal operations. So we're as a regulator, we are technology agnostic. However, we have recently issued IT risk management guidance, which includes also a chapter on AI and the use of technology by our firms. And in it, we lay out our expected outcomes and some risk areas that we want firms to be cognizant of. We are also working with other local regulators within the UAE to ensure a more coordinated approach. So hopefully there will be announcements in the near future in this space. On an internal processes level, we have issued open reg. We're calling it Open Reg, which is machine readable with labeled data sets of our rule books to make it more user-friendly for our firms, and with the hope to continue to make it, to continue to increase the level of compliance and accessibility of our rules across the sectors. We are looking at different ways of also integrating AI into our internal operations. So we're looking at using AI in terms of in reviews of submissions by firms. We're looking at different aspects of computational technology for reviewing of data sets. And that will help us both at authorization levels, but also as part of our day-to-day supervisory duties. We're looking at how we can use the existing data to enhance our risk profiling and risk assessment of firms. So there's a lot of work that is going in this space. I mean, obviously, the main challenge is time, finding the right resources, and working collaboratively with all different stakeholders, because whatever we do has impacts not just on us internally, but also outside outside the regulator and whoever utilizes our rules and regulations and the way we supervise firms.
Great, thanks a lot. And quite a lot of change. It sounds like the regulator is keeping up with the pace of innovation, so we need to watch out. Okay, so last question from my side. This is more kind of high-level perspective. If you were to think about the next years, what excites you the most, or maybe keeps you awake at night about the future of financial services, and what should we do about it? And maybe we'll start with Jayesh.
Yeah, so, you know, when I was growing up, those of you who are as old as I am, being a banker wasn't cool. But for the past 10 years, the amount of money that has gone in finance and fintech, I think it's an industry that's going to continue to change. Yep. So I think there's a lot of change. Change brings exciting opportunities, helps us grow the pie, helps us serve customers better. So I think there's a lot of stuff. I think AI till last year was a hype for valuation. I think this year we're seeing real use cases. Yeah? You know, I always tell the team, imagine you're looking for a book and somebody sends you to a library and says, on the 3rd floor, there are all the books on ADGM. Imagine another service where you go and they say, yes, there's 1,000 books on ADGM, but here's a summary of the best stuff from all of them. That's the difference between Google and ChatGPT. I use Google because I think it's the coolest. My kids use ChatGPT. Now, they are a mind shift away from where I am. And figuring out what these consumers with these capabilities are going to need, to me, is the most exciting part.
Great. Sunidhi?
So I think, thank you, Bianca. I can start a debate here. You've allowed me the opportunity. You know, we call private markets as alternatives because they're supposed to be alternative to the mainstream, which is public market. But you know, in the context today, when public markets are structurally declining, not only in the US, in Europe, in any other country, so the question is private market truly an alternate, or is it foundational to any investor's portfolio? And so therefore, what excites me is that Finstreet has been given the opportunity to re-architect how global assets and global capital will move in this foundational asset class, you know, is very exciting. But equally, the fact that it's stemming from the UAE, which has the largest and the deepest pools of capital, is the largest investor in the world, has assets that they own and not just manage. So the fact that we have this market and post-trade infrastructure, which is being led by the UAE, you know, at the forefront of capital markets, the change of capital markets, to me is very exciting and, you know, full of responsibility as well.
Exciting indeed. Thank you, Sunidhi. And Marianne, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we're quite excited with the different opportunities and different products that are being we're seeing as a result of AI and technology. And the change has been quite rapid. And we're seeing more financial inclusion, more efficiency, more better cost management in the finance sector, which is quite exciting. And it also keeps life interesting, right? On a day-to-day basis. What is most important for me is that we harness the added value of AI and technology by using it responsibly. And we can only do that by all stakeholders maintaining that ongoing dialogue and engagement. Because whatever one stakeholder does has an impact across the sector and on consumers.
Thank you very much, Marianne. And I completely concur on the level of excitement for the future of financial services. As I mentioned before, I think we are in a moment of structural transformation of the whole industry, and we're all playing active roles in a way or the other to shape it, so extremely exciting. Thanks a lot to the panelists for sharing your insightful perspectives. Round of applause for our audience. Thank you very much.